podcast. This is something that's going to be exploring the depths of AI image generation and where we're at right now, where we're headed. The two podcast guests today that we have, Ari and Rahul. These guys, I mean, they're from pretty varied fields, but definitely both are, their body of work is heavily visual. And with that, let me just take it to our guests. I'd like to, call upon Ari to introduce himself.
Thanks, Rohan. Nice to be here. Thank you for the invitation and having me over. My name is Ari Jayaprakash. I'm from Kannur in Tamil Nadu. I'm an artist. Well, that's what I like to call myself. Nowadays, more of an AI artist, I would think. But I do a lot of art and performance art as well. I have a project that I do with Rohan and collaborate with Rahul, the other guest as well. And along with Chintan, it's called 𝗏 Circus, where we combine music and art and projections. So I dwell in these fields, and currently I'm exploring a lot of the AI art stuff with all the new softwares coming out. And yeah, it's nice to be here.
And the two softwares being Midjourney and 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 in particular.
Well, at the moment, yes, but just today there was Stable Diffusion came out. And Stable Diffusion, the invites went out at midnight across all countries. And that's a pretty amazing software. You get on, if anyone's interested, you can get onto Discord and you have your Stable Diffusion group out there. Currently, I'm not sure if the invites are being sent out, but I'm sure in very soon it'll happen. And that's also an amazing algorithm. It's kind of getting into it's a combination of maybe 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 and Midjourney. So primarily I'm using Midjourney and 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 at the moment, yes, with, touch up and post-production and Photoshop and some, topaz upscaling, stuff like that. So, yeah.
Sure. Rahul, can we have a quick intro about you as well, buddy?
Yeah, sure, man. First of all, thanks for getting us on here, and really, really good to be here. I find it a little difficult to describe myself. I'm an artist, but I'm also a designer. I'm an educator. I'm a futurist. I'm a technologist. I wear very many hats. And I've been into virtual reality since around 1997. And practicing it like actively and offering VR services and AR services as well as metaverses since about 2006. I've been a metaverse nut since as far back as I can recall. I do believe it's a fantastic medium for actual communication and interaction, and definitely the future of what the net is going to be. And very excited to be like finally, validated in a sense, because now everyone's talking about metaverses where 16, 17 years ago, I was pretty much the only one talking about that in this context. The art I do is, I would call it mixed media on steroids, because I work across every medium. I sketch on pen and paper, I paint on canvases, I create VR sculptures and VR animations, and of course I've played around with augmented reality art. I do a lot of digital art, and recently, I got into Midjourney and 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 and all these AI painting tools. But unlike I think Ari, like I kind of use them as references for the artworks that I'm actually making. It's more like it's a fantastic tool for visualization, and conceptualization. And that's kind of where I'm using it the most, not so much actually, creating artworks. But the potential for these platforms is astonishing, man. It's absolutely mind-blowing. I think we're in the middle of a game changer kind of situation happening here, because I do foresee that a lot of these tools are going to be used across, not only just art, but production, but, cinematics. They can be used for conceptualization, for products. It's astonishing what power these kind of technologies get to us, and that I think would be at the core of what I do. My job is to actually make technology easily usable, understandable by people in general. So I guess that's all about me.
For sure. So, with both of your guys' work, I completely understand what kind of artists you guys are. And I've seen your work up close and personal, experienced it in multiple ways. And one thing I'd really like to ask is, what made you publish NFTs? Why are you looking towards NFTs? Is it just like a fad, or is this something actually useful?
What made me get into NFTs? Rohan made me get into NFTs, actually, as I recall. As I recall, yes, when I was just about getting into NFTs and stuff. See, the thing is that NFTs represent a really, really interesting way to showcase and sell your own art, right? Whereas what used to happen in the traditional sense was that if you're an artist, there were very few tools to actually showcase your own art to a larger number of people. You'd have to either have an exhibition or you'd actually have to approach a gallery and get represented by them. And given the amount of artists around and given the amount of galleries around, it was always a really, really tough proposition. So NFTs became a very, very good way for artists to actually start exploring ways of selling their own art, which was the part of it that I found like absolutely fascinating. That it was a tool for empowerment, at least in the beginning. Let's not talk about where it is today. But yeah, I was very excited about the whole prospect of proving, getting the provenance of art locked and very secure, getting artists to actually sort of showcase their own work independent of any other agencies or galleries. It was a trend that was very, very exciting, when it actually came out.
And Ari, for you, I mean,
Well,
do you
I've
feel
not really
empowered with your NFT publications?
I've not really kind of completely dived into the NFT game, but I totally agree with Rahul. It's really shot through the roof since it first came out during the pandemic time, and I'm exploring avenues of doing that. And also, there's a whole bunch of AI generated art which is going out in the NFT zone right now, and it's a very interesting time period. But personally, I haven't completely gotten into it. But yeah, I'm still exploring those avenues more with my traditional work rather than the AI generated stuff. With my traditional work and my digital art, non AI work.
In fact, yeah, that was going to be my next question. Does the NFTs help with your physical art to sell better?
Yes,
yes. Is that an advantage over the traditional models out there?
Sure, the reach is much more. Like Rahul said, classically, what I would do would, like any other artist, is you'd find a curator or an agent, and you would have to physically showcase those paintings. And we've had many shows where I've had to carry the artworks and you showcase it in different events or festivals, etc. But now the reach is much more. Even using social media to kind of upload your work, the reach is so much. But in the NFT space and being on different platforms like Foundation or the others, people are more particularly looking for that. So there's more scope and for selling your work, and yeah.
So what you're saying, it's much cheaper now than what it would have been 10 years ago?
It's easier now, obviously. Cheaper.
Gotcha.
It's easier now, as
physically setting up a space, carrying your work. I mean, there's a particular cost attached to it. You need manpower, you need time.
For sure.
Yes, exactly. Now it's just a lot easier because
you need to rent out a physical space, for 5 days, for a week, depending on how long your exhibition is going to be.
We've done festivals together. You know how those things are, where you have to physically be there and curate the show. And you've been a curator, and all the artworks need to go up, and you have to coordinate all of that. So it's just a lot easier to kind of project it onto an NFT platform. And
plus framing, printing, networking, calling all the people. So I'll tell you, for me, what the converse to the NFT thing is, right? And it's a really tricky issue to get your head around. The thing is that galleries exist for a reason, curators exist for a reason, right? And the fact is that a gallery will make the task of getting the artist into public exposed to the public a lot easier. And the gallery also goes through a lot of time, expense to actually frame your artworks, to actually call people there, have that exhibition in their physical space, give out free drinks to everyone, all of that stuff. It's a pretty expensive proposition, which is
There's a
why
cost attached to it,
galleries,
yeah.
there's a cost attached to it. Which is why galleries actually charge, they take about 50% or even sometimes 70% of the sale of the artwork as their commission. Right? Now, the thing is that with the onset of NFTs, that whole revolution got turned right back onto the artist. That instead of the gallery sort of, you know, being responsible for all of the stuff that you do, you yourself then had to become responsible for it. So then the onus was on the artist, that like you have to do all your promotion. You actually have to get on Twitter 5 times a day and shout it out to everybody that this is my art, this is so awesome. And with about like a million other artists doing the same, it gets very difficult again to actually showcase your work to the people who need to, to potential buyers who'd be interested in your style of art. Right? So
And
there is a
especially
trade-off, Yeah, go on.
true, and especially now with all the AI art, curation is going to be a heavy thing because
Yeah,
people are just it's just there's so much artwork coming out
Yeah, we're
every
just
hour,
getting to those
every day.
points. Yeah.
yep,
And and then you have to ask questions like, what is an original? The ethics currently around AI art, it's very ambiguous. I mean, let alone the legal system, because if you're going to be prompting names and you're using different artist styles, and do you give credit to that artist? Does that artist get a royalty? What are the legal aspects of that? You might be prompting film director names or certain artist names, anime names, or characters from
Yeah,
different
yep.
places. So it's very ambiguous from a legal perspective at the moment. And I'm very glad that questions are being asked right now about how, for example, how much of a change in a work that you use makes that an original? What is, prior art? What is derivative infringement? For
yeah,
example, people are always inspired by others. No one has grown up to, to create things without ever seeing what has gone before, right? And every day, like Midjourney and DALI and the other platforms, they see a lot of it from prompters all around the world and already utilizing names of the artists who are already there.
agreed.
So, and artists wrestle with this forever, I think. And now we are in a very interesting phase, I think, where all these questions need to be asked. And I'm also very glad that art has gotten decentralized in a way because,
Yeah,
uh, everyone's going to be doing it. You don't have to be an artist to do it. So, but then again, a lot of questions to be asked. What is art? Who is an
Yeah,
artist?
that was my exact next question. What
right.
is the value in democratizing art?
Well, I can give you my personal sort of view, yeah, right? Now, hilariously enough, when I first came across Midjourney and DALI and a bunch of these other AI art tools and saw how incredibly accurate and how artistic they were, the first thing I was feeling was bemusement, man. That listen, shit, dude, it takes me goddamn 60 to 100 hours to create a piece of artwork, which this bastard does in like 2 minutes, man. Like, this is not fair. At some point, there was that initial sense of, holy cow, what's going on
Initial
here?
reaction, yeah.
Like, this is not like, then I realized that, look, as a teacher, as an educator, and especially somebody who likes to show people how to actually create art and stuff, this is actually a revolution in the sense that, you know, um, you no longer need to have those kind of skills to be able to visualize something that's in your head. And ultimately, for artists, that's actually a good thing, right? Uh, the other issue that I was actually sort of struggling with was the whole thing of, then what makes real art? What's the genuineness of the art that an artist makes kind of starts getting called into question. That if it's just a matter of putting a phrase into an AI, right? Could
Right.
you actually call that out? Would that fall within the definition? And actually, it pretty much does, because there is some amount of creativity and thought that actually goes into stating the case very, very accurately for the AI to get the same image. So the vision is in your head. The AI is just getting that vision out there, right? And if you look at it, a pen and paper does exactly the same thing. It's just conveying a vision that's in your head, right? And putting it out there so that other people can react to it and see it. And so in the broader sense, I would say actually it's a good thing. It's a good sort of thing that this is happening. You know?
So
I mean,
what
sorry, go
yeah,
ahead. I was just saying that the operator of this tool, I've been just introducing. I did a whole series on Indian ancient Varanasi and
Ayodhya, Vrindavan, yes, beautiful.
so a lot of people were asking me this question. So my whole purpose of this is to introduce people to this new tool, people across all different professions. I think it has profound implications, I think, for the future, from a design perspective, from architecture to automobile design to, medical equipment and just about everything. And the operator of this tool can be anyone. And this is truly democratized art that requires no life growing skills. I've been, I've known artists who will take days and weeks to create for the concept artworks, and currently it's done like this.
Mhm.
So, well, a lot of jobs, there might be a lot of insecurity regarding, the traditional artists using the tool, but I think they will just reinvent themselves.
Correct.
Areas like concept pre-production in, say, cinema, for example, or game design, the concept artworks for all of those, or character design. Now it's just a lot easier from a business perspective. It's less time consuming. There's also a lot more variety. So,
True,
I mean, all
true.
that's required is just imagination. But
And
also,
for sure.
there are other questions you need to address. Like initially, when Midjourney came out, there was no, what do you call, banned words, and it was just a free for all during I remember the April and May of this year. And then you had to kind of, there's also a darker side to this, because it could be utilized for all the wrong reasons. I mean, there's a lot of,
Yeah, like
you know,
I remember having prompted something and cutting was part of the phrase, part of the prompt, and it banned it.
yeah,
yeah,
Cronenberg was a banned
So,
phrase initially. They had to ban, David Cronenberg purely because of his style and what he does. And as time has progressed, I mean, there are certain even emojis that you can't use now. So the moderators and the coders have had to work with this, because I understand their problem. People are utilizing it, maybe in a wrong way. But, well, I don't
yeah,
know.
I
Maybe,
mean, this wants to make me bring up that story where they trained an AI on Twitter and it turned out to be a Nazi
or
right-wing
Microsoft,
extremist. Yeah.
Microsoft
And
as
they had
well.
to shut it down. They
Yeah,
started tweeting lots of right-wing, anti-Semitic stuff.
oh, absolutely.
And
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of that
so,
going on. And eventually
I
it
mean,
will
it's
be,
a similar effect that we're seeing in, say, some of these rooms.
mhm.
yeah. I think giant corporations will inevitably be buying. Well, there will surely be business deals going down. I think Adobe just might buy Midjourney. You never know.
No, Adobe's got its own AI actually, and it's pretty darn powerful. If you've actually started using Photoshop these days, it's a little uncanny what how
Oh, the beta version you're talking about. Oh, yes.
yeah, right. The other point I wanted to make, Rohan, was that see, the thing is that just actually having a visualization tool like Midjourney does not equate to having the entire process, right? Just to give you an example, the metaverse I'm currently working on is called Planet Maya. It's a gaming-based metaverse, built around skill games and stuff. And we are having a little bit of an issue with the branding. Let's put it that way. We haven't been able to find a logo that is really good. So off the top of my head, I asked Midjourney to make a logo, and it comes up with a very nice logo. But having a
Yep.
simple logo is not by any means the entire process, because you need to actually then have branding guidelines around that logo. You have to have a bunch of other,
Oh, but
other
it's a
assets
great
around the
starting point.
logo. It's a great starting point. So for visualization, like I said, it's absolutely excellent, but it will not replace the entire process, of design and creation for quite a long time yet. I mean, it hasn't reached anywhere near that level of refinement or finesse.
For sure. So,
Rahul, how long do you think it would be? I mean, we already headed towards hurtling towards the metaverse. Right now, the AI softwares, it's more 2D generated, apart from, say, disco diffusion, where you can take it into the 3D realm.
Okay.
But I'm sure, but in a little bit, maybe in a year or two, don't you think we all, when you create the 2D image, we kind of, it automatically takes you into the 3D realm?
For
And
sure.
everyone
For sure. And those tools exist today, man. Honestly.
Yeah.
Right?
And with the metaverse and the glasses, then everything that Zuckerberg's coming out with, it'll be much more engaging.
This. I just want to step back for a second. This Adobe buying out, the journey thing. We just quickly brushed it, but it's quite interesting because recently Amazon just bought Roomba. And initially, I was like, yeah, Amazon, they keep on going around and buying stuff. And then recently I read something where, it just dawned on me where having Roomba, a company like Amazon, is going to have data and schematics of people's houses now.
Yep.
So, similarly, the kind of data that's being generated right now in these Discord rooms, basis, whatever people are generating. I mean, this is gold for a lot of these corporations.
If
they want to train the AIs and
yeah. But I'd again argue that it see, the thing is that I had this really hilarious thought that Amazon bought out Roomba or iRobot, and if they only need to then add one camera to the room cleaning robot.
I mean, you never know. The next set of Roombas they're releasing might have sensors.
You never know. Exactly. So,
and they're collecting all this data while it's sweeping or
creepy,
while your cat's
like it's a little, it's interesting to speculate on these things, right? But and see, honestly speaking, we are being recorded every freaking minute of our lives in any case. It doesn't really.
We're being recorded right now.
Yeah.
And there's only one mother, if you ask me, and that is Google. Google's listening to Google is the, and speaking of Google had this the AI art software called Imagine, right, Rahul? If I'm not mistaken.
I remember. Yeah,
so I heard the conspiracy theories, and they were on all these forums that they're not releasing it to the public because it is just too powerful.
Yeah. Plus, and it was beautiful when I experimented with it, and I would see how it would be fantastic for, say, landscape artists, for example. That you say that, okay, I want to set it to rocks, and I just draw random squiggles on the screen, and there you go, you have a set of rocks. It's very good for visual composition that way, right? I don't think artists are going to be getting out of jobs anytime soon. It's not really heading towards that. I think the thing is that all these things are tool sets. You have to be very careful to look at them only as tool sets, things that actually enhance your productivity, they enhance your creativity to some extent to the other, but they can't replace it.
Good.
Not yet. Who knows?
But
like 5 years
definitely mediocrity dies in this scenario.
Correct, yeah. And
it's
coming up with a more creative world, so why would anybody object to that?
And speaking of AI, we must also mention, since we also delve in the music realm, that it's inevitable that AI music software has come out, and you're listening to a Mongolian heavy metal track mixed with the squeals of a Japanese girl with, whales mating in the Pacific Ocean, on, you know what I mean, with some Bangla rap thrown in there with drum beats, South Indian drum beats. Use your imagination. So I think the next level would also be audio and music also heading in that direction.
Absolutely. And regarding the 3D stuff that you were talking about, like a lot of these programs, like say Blender, I know for sure, Unreal and all, they all have what are called generative algorithms, right? So in earlier times, if I want to build a metaverse and I want to build an entire bunch of buildings around, which people will wander through, I want to make streets and stuff, all of that can be automated so easily nowadays using generative algorithms. So, I mean, overall, they're just improving your productivity pretty much, nothing else as far as I can make out. It's not going to actually create the entire vision for you. right? At some point, 2, 3 years down the line, I'm visualizing, like you said, design diffusion, for instance, or a 3D version of Midjourney, which says where you can tell it that, I want to create an ancient city, which is like, based on the Mayan and Incan kind of ruins. And I wanted actually to look a little bit more like, what it would look like in the present with cars and stuff and all. I mean, again, it's better than actually sitting for like 60 hours and doing that, because that's all tedious grunge work. You don't really need to, that somebody has to do it, so they're doing it.
I get it, but Rahul, just on this point, with a
uh,
$10 subscription to Midjourney right now,
uh,
I can possibly put a lot of artists out of work who might be storyboarding for major art houses right now.
yeah, sure enough, but let them also start using the same tools, no?
Yeah.
Yeah, so now you actually don't need the physical skills to be able to draw. You just need somebody smart enough to prompt it into existence.
That's been an ongoing process for decades, bro.
So what would you define promptism, Ari?
Promptism.
Like right now, this word doesn't exist.
Sorry?
Right now, the word doesn't exist. If I type it on mails and
everything, promptism is an art movement whose creators apply machine learning models trained with trusted language.
I think it's the greatest art movement of all time. It is the art movement. It is the art movement where everyone's going to be doing it. Nobody in the history of the art movement would be involved so much in it. Classically, you take all the art movements. Right now, you're while you're going to have billions of people, in this art movement. So promptism for me would probably be the greatest art movement and a historical art movement, which was kind of at the cusp where we are heading towards, a much more imaginative future where everyone tends to use their imagination using words. And well, I think it's a good thing. Everyone's going to be imagining more and using the imagination a little more, for good or bad. I mean, we'll wait and see. Some will use it for good, some will use it for bad. Some will create nuclear bloody weapons or ammunition and other things. Some will make, I don't know, fairies and crochet work and that kind of stuff.
I mean, the kind of prompts that I was feeding into Midjourney at this point in time would be, very politically sensitive. So these kind of softwares can literally take trolling to, like unimaginable heights.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but then you're in a world where deepfakes exist, man. Like, deepfake videos exist and stuff. So it's okay. We have to be adjusting.
Yeah, but there's no barrier to entry. Imagine like a troll army getting a Midjourney subscription and then churn out hateful content 24/7. That's kind of scary.
Yeah, and it's state sponsored as well to quite a large extent nowadays. That you want to start defaming somebody, you can actually also do that on like really, really major levels. The problem is that you see that we're living in an information economy nowadays, and it comes with its big pluses and its really big minuses, right? The minus is that nobody tends to then place trust in news sources anymore, right? When you know that news can be manufactured so easily, or things can be manufactured so easily, there's a global distrust of this whole anything that you see or hear online. You have like things like QAnon, which people are like major believers of and stuff, and the kind of stuff that they spout is just like, what are you talking about, man? You know what I'm saying? So the thing is, we are living in a space now, in a society now, or a civilization now, where everyone is questioning what they're actually seeing, and in the net, I think that is a good thing. That skepticism should be something that should be cultivated. Healthy skepticism should be cultivated by everybody at that level, right? That being said, see, I come from a time where, as a product designer, right, I had to make all my designs using these giant drafting boards, right? And people were saying that like, yeah, computers are going to put like lots of people out of jobs when you have AutoCAD and stuff like that. It actually didn't, what it did was it caused more people to actually learn these tools and apply them, and more jobs as a consequence, right? So
Photoshop came out. Yeah, I remember when Photoshop came out.
Yeah,
people said, like, people just evolved and took Photoshop along with it, and right now, I think the same thing is happening with AI art. Artists are not really you're going to have to reinvent yourself, but you're not really going to go out of a job, I think. Not anytime.
Sorry to interject there. Rohan, can I ask a question to all you guys?
Go for
it. I feel that like you guys are basically worshipping technology, regardless of you use it yourself or somebody provides it for you.
Is this Sam?
Yeah, it's me, man. Hi. So beyond highlighting the wonderful part of technology, how do you guys see the artist in the future? I mean, like use Metaverse, use AI, what have you, but we are still serving a technology which neither belongs to us, nor can we control it. Right? There is a sense of control. But what do you guys see the artist in the future? Because a lot got spoken right now about AI, right? So yeah, I'd love to know if you guys want, if there is an interest in looking at the future of the arts and the artists, rather than spending so much time worshipping the technology. Yeah, thanks.
I love the technology. I'm not going to be ever ashamed of that. But like, just to answer your question, Samrat, see, it's like this, like, sorry, Ari, you were saying something?
No, go ahead. You finish. You finish first, Rob.
Yeah. See, the thing is that where I see the future going towards is more like collaborative stuff, right? In earlier times, like a guy like Ari and a guy like me could not really get together except physically and create interesting visions and create interesting art, right? So when I'm talking about technology as an enabler, it's enabling people to do things together very, very effectively, right? Now, back when I was in Second Life, let's say Second Life is a metaverse which has been around since 2003. And there was a time when I was building spaces inside it, really loving it, but I wasn't building it alone. Like me and 3 or 4 of my friends used to be inside the world together. We were building it from the inside out, right? Now, this kind of art co-creation paradigm is not very effective even today. Today, it's also like very, very sequential.
I mean, there's a barrier to entry. First,
there's a barrier to entry. Yeah, you have to.
There's an economic barrier to entry that's there, but if that can be overcome, then there's like limitless applications.
Absolutely, like, and the thing is that this is all like work I'm doing. This is all like stuff that's part of my regular profession. And over the years, I've seen a lot of these major changes actually happen, right? And to me, all of them have been heading more towards how to make people communicate, interact, work together more efficiently, right? So there's also a social component to this as well, that, society is changing. We're used to actually interacting with each other online. We're not, that whole barrier, that physical limitation of being in the same place and talking and meeting and interacting with people is just no longer exists. And it's just going to keep improving.
Right. Sorry to interject at this point again. The thing is that you're saying that you've taken away like a barrier, but the distance between you and me right now itself is a barrier. We could have this conversation and still co-create, and there is tremendous value in me looking at your eyes, you looking at my eyes, and many such things. The same applies for making art or making music. Without a real connection with human beings, the barrier is still there, I would say. Yeah.
True, but things like the metaverse are establishing that connection, no?
I mean, that's exactly where we want to be headed towards, and that's why the tech worship at this point in time, because a lot of these technologies, like you need to use an Oculus Quest with virtual desktop to actually realize how important this could be in real life meetings, in collaborations, and discussing text. I mean, I don't even do anything technical, I discussing, presentations or certain type of content that's going online. I mean, it would be extremely helpful if the rest of my team had an Oculus VR at this point in time. And if, you have people collaborating on AutoCAD designs, different, colleges trying to work on certain R&D projects together. I mean, that sort of work becomes much easier. I think, Rahul, your ISRO analogy for having a virtual workspace is, I guess, the best sell.
Right.
Also, I just want to add quickly. I just want to add that Sam was talking about worshipping AI. Our entire lives today, I think the coronavirus expedited the process. What would have taken people to get? It would have taken the number of people to get online. It happened in 10 years. It literally happened in 10 months, purely because of the virus. And our entire lives are dictated by the algorithm. Of course, it is when you look at a human being, when you're playing music live in front of a human crowd, or I'm showcasing my artwork to somebody and they're in front of me, that's a different feeling. But
I would say that's the natural feeling. It's not the different feeling. It's how we grew up, and we cannot lose that.
Sure, no, it's not a question of losing that. You are fighting the future. If you had this conversation with somebody 20 years from now who's 2 years old today, he will not understand what you're saying, because they live in that world. We are moving towards that world of Homo superior. The age of Homo sapien is done. I personally believe our entire human evolution is not yet done. It is going to move into a Neuralink world, and then it'll go even further. And technology is very much a part of it. There are going to be grandmothers who need to see their grandchild on the other end of the world, and they're just going to be on on WhatsApp and other things. And our entire lives, not just ours, the elderly, the youngsters, it's all dictated by AI and the algorithms out there. And
I mean, I definitely, agree that it's very scary to think of a world where your brain's connected and the kind of control that could come over you and everything. But at the end of the day, the kind of good stuff that you can achieve, at least what I feel, with this AI, the amount of good that you can do is worth it.
Absolutely.
I mean, you have to go for these kind of systems,
like
and
to
then
quote
ensure that, it doesn't go to the dark side.
Right. The genie's out of the bottle, right? You can't put it back in.
More than that, Samrat, I'll give you an analogy here, right? I'm the co-founder and I'm running VR studios at the moment, right? Now, each one of these has a development and a production pipeline, right? Now, there is the way we are doing it even today, which is that I create my modeler creates a 3D model of a building, then it has to go to the Unreal developer who puts the interactivity into that. There's a visual artist who's doing all the signage for all of these buildings that we're actually creating. Now, doing it sequentially is good, but there's a lot of time that gets wasted when you're doing that, right? Now, what happens is that first the guy sends it to this other guy says, okay, there's some issue with this. The first guy reworks that. All of this stuff can actually start happening in real time. There are tools for this, specifically something called NVIDIA Omniverse. You should really check that out. That takes care, that handles the Google Earth is already is a proto metaverse. Let's put it that way. But so productivity enhancing is definitely a very good thing, in this context. The second thing is when you're talking about interpersonal relationships, right, which I think is what Samrat is really focusing on, that, there's this whole thing of when you're sitting and meeting somebody over a cup of coffee, there's a lot of interaction that's going on. You're being able to sort of read their body language because 95% of human communication is nonverbal. Right, these are things that we as metaverse developers are really sort of looking at, and if you read this seminal book called Snow Crash by an author called Neil Stephenson, where the term metaverse was coined, right, he has a little part of this where he's talking about this only, that, that how do you, I forget what the actual term was, but condense fact from the vapor of nuance, right? How do you actually come to a conclusion, looking at somebody, interacting with somebody? Like metaverses are evolving. We are, I would say, at the very early stages of metaverses. But imagine if you had a technology like something like Neuralink, for example, which gives you, sort of tweaks your nerves,
instant access or something,
to give you sort of the impression that you're shaking hands with somebody, right? Now, if I had a metaverse situation where I was an absolute actual version of myself, a holographic version of myself, right, and I had other technologies, haptics and stuff that let me actually feel things inside the virtual world with other people, how would that be any different from any interaction that's actually happening in the real world? Firstly, we are approaching a point where all of these technologies are converging towards that very feeling of presence, of immersion, of being in the actual same space with somebody, right? The second part to this is that that these kind of technologies give you access to people that you would never have had access to earlier, right? I'm an 80s child, dude. Back in my day, I had my circle of 5 friends and that was it, buddy. I wanted more like sort of, if I wanted different kinds of interactions with different people, or I wanted to meet some guys, say in the US or in Norway or places like that, it would have been absolutely impossible like 20 years ago, right? Here, I've got like friends who I talk to on a daily basis, who I befriended in the virtual world of Second Life. We used to go to nightclubs. We used to hang out. We used to the whole concept is that of shared experience. If you can manage using technology to bring about a realistic level of that shared experience, then it is definitely a much more enriching thing than actually being limited to all just the people around you. If there was no such thing as the internet, for example, you would not be able to discover the kind of people that you do, right? A lot of like a majority of my friends, I would never actually have met in real life if it had come to that, right? And these relationships, I will argue, are as deep and as meaningful as any real world relationship that you could get, right?
For sure. So, just moving on from this point,
Huh.
I mean, if you've been to these Discord rooms that Midjourney has,
Hmm.
do you guys feel the frequency of publications and the quality of end results, they sort of diminish the value a little?
No,
I
man.
personally scroll through this, and I get desensitized to how amazing they are, and that
I
sort of
get
becomes like
inspired, boss. I get inspired because it's so nice to see what other prompts like people are giving. It gives you an insight into their minds, man.
But Rahul, Rohan also has a point. Sometimes it's overkill.
It says,
Certain
yeah, information
sometimes
overload.
overkill.
Yeah.
Somebody will be prompting in the Miyazaki, Mullen zone of, for example, Geiger. Geiger was just overkill. I think he was the first artist. He just went into an overkill zone with Midjourney. Everybody
Yep.
was prompting Alien and the whole Geiger design, aspects of his style. And yeah, after a while, the novelty started to wear off. I think that's what Rohan's mentioning. But I think there's enough subjects out there and enough things to prompt to be inspired on a daily basis across the whole, of different genres and different artist styles and all of that. So it's always something to look forward to.
So, what have you felt like, the artist community's perception of these tools have been so far? Do these guys feel threatened?
Traditionalists who kind of hate the stuff. I know a few of them. Like, what is this nonsense? This is not art, blah, blah, blah. There are also people like me who are completely embracing it. If you're a real artist and if you have, we are where we are. It's not going away. AI art is not going anywhere.
You being more into, performance art, definitely I would expect you to be a little more adaptive than.
No, I've also been a traditional artist for 30 years. I've been working on the pen and paper and oil and canvas and acrylics for about 30 years, And
I'm not going to stop. And you're not going to stop just because an AI thing comes about.
I'm not going to stop that. Absolutely not. And I think there just might come a period in the near future where traditional artworks will come back into fashion, or the valuation of those will go up, maybe for a bit. I don't know.
Something like what happened with vinyls? Is that what you're saying?
Well, there's a possibility there, I think, with all the overkill going on. So I embrace it. I introduce people to it. It's the way it is. It's a new tool. And
so, man, Ari, like personally, I know your work. I've seen the kind of different surfaces that you work on. I've seen the different kind of materials that you use during your performance art pieces, and even personally, I've been to your studio. I've seen stuff there. In that sort of a scenario, a traditionalist would say that a lot of these kind of fields of different paper, different ink, different mediums, this might be lost the more, AI takes over and kids don't even get a chance to come into contact with these different mediums. Is that something?
Well, I would not really encourage that. I would always encourage kids and people to also be exploring traditional art forms. Some of the things I do, I take my artworks and sometimes I play with it in AI and try to generate other things. But I don't think it should be a complete AI. The traditional should not kind of go out of fashion. Kids should be taught that for sure, along with AI art. And I really don't think that's going out. With all the AI art, it's still going to be there.
Nobody's writing on tablets anymore. So, there are art forms that are lost, and then there are art forms that are gained. as technology
You're looking in the
comes.
distant future, at least in the near future or in this decade, maybe in a couple of years, I don't see the traditional artist, completely dying out, as you would say. Maybe the education, I mean, all the kids are going to start exploring AI art. It's easier. We are in a world of instant gratification. Everyone wants things instantly. So the pleasure of working on a oil piece for weeks and weeks and then kind of
Yeah,
enjoy
these are
it.
things you want to communicate. Yeah, these should not be lost.
The effort you put into it is lost. I mean, it's done in an instant now, but yeah, well, and if we're headed in that direction, that's the direction it is. As an artist, I mean, what are you going to do? Sit and cry about it? No, you reinvent yourself.
Yeah.
That's what we can do. So
Yeah,
I
put on your big
reemphasize
boy
this
pants.
again. Like
Put
all
on your
these are
big boy
just
pants and move on.
tools. Exactly. All these are tools for just helping you be better at what you do. They're
and
not
they said the
they're
same
not
thing about
replacement.
Photoshop, Rahul. You remember when Photoshop came, right? Everyone was
Mhm.
like, "Oh, this is going to destroy art and blah blah blah." And well, we're still here in 22.
Doing our
Photoshop,
stuff, right? And Photoshop's become a tool for refining the images that we make. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's not, it's not a, I don't see it as a bad thing. Yeah. But I will say, I mean, just to add to what you were saying, Rohan, that there are certain things that need to be, kept alive, kept alive. Like one of the biggest rants I have around um, is that people just don't read anymore. You know, I'm an inveterate reader, and I know the word inveterate because I'm a reader. For instance, like it's sort of, and when people are proudly saying that, hey, no, I only watch YouTube and I do all my learning from that, and I'm like, Baba, you're missing out like so much there. Like because reading sort of sparks your imagination, right?
Rahul,
Similarly
people
with
are not
this.
don't read so much anymore, but hopefully with AI they'll start writing a little more
Yeah,
using
yeah,
the
exactly.
they'll start writing a
Definitely
little.
explore their own imaginations.
Absolutely,
I completely agree.
So
which is a good thing.
this one is right to Rahul. I've been sharing Midjourney work with a lot of people in films, and
Huh.
these guys definitely their eyes light up when they see stuff like this.
Goodness,
So
yes.
how far away are we from prompting something into existence on Midjourney or
Huh.
DALL-E,
Huh.
and then creating like a 3D world and using it in the Unreal Engine, and then actually shooting something on a set with a backdrop? I mean, how far are we from a situation like this, or
Couple of
is it
years
already here?
max. Couple of years max. Like, see, the thing is, the tools are already there. It's just a matter of different people being able to utilize those tools effectively. And that comes with a better understanding of how they actually work, right? So, it's not going to take very long. Like, and see, the thing is that I've made films, right? I've created animations in virtual reality. I've made short films. I've done all that stuff. And I can tell you, man, like a lot of areas, like say a cinematographer is not an artist. A storyteller does not need to, I mean, doesn't necessarily have the skills to be able to sort of bring that story out into visuals, right? Storyboarding is a pain, man. Like,
It
the thing is,
is.
you're actually trying to take that entire like movie and you're trying to sort of figure out what the key sort of frames are going to be, and then you have to visualize them so that your entire team can actually get to see them. And the clearer those visuals in that storyboard are, the more likely it is that everyone else is going to follow your vision as a director, for example, right? So I could totally see these coming in very, very handy to people who do not, who have the vision but don't necessarily have the skills, right? And why is it a bad thing that you're giving them all the tools to be able to visualize all these things, whether they have the skills or not? At least the important thing is that their vision is coming, into view by people who are actually sort of engaged in it, who are able to understand it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Moving
Even
on.
when I started,
Yeah,
just to add to
sorry.
that, even when I started my career, I used to work in a pre-production department in a major animation company in Chennai back in the day in the late 90s. And in the pre-production department, the storyboard artist, when the script comes in, from the storyboarding to the concept artist doing their thing, before it goes into the production process, the costume design, all of that, it's a time-consuming process. So if you're ILM or DreamWorks or any film production house or post-production house or even game development companies. It saves time from a business perspective. It saves time for sure.
For sure. So, like I was saying, moving ahead, do you think all these AIs being created, like we have Midjourney and DALL-E, and we have Google DeepMind alpha versions of AI, do you think all of these can merge and like make one grand AI? Is that something of a possibility?
I think you're talking about the singularity, are you?
I mean, singularity is something different, but right now, do you think we can start achieving better AIs by integrating existing AIs across various?
It's already happening, right? Mama is Google. Google is Mama. You don't Alexa it. You don't Siri it. You Google it. And all of them are all the time constantly networking on the AI cloud with each other.
And learning.
And learning all the time. And even the data sets, I mean, with the AI softwares, they're all going out there and they're already doing it. And
Google there was a short story a little while ago in the news, I think about a month ago, where one of the Google techs who was working on Google AI claimed that it had become sentient and self-aware. And Google was very quick to fire him and debunk that claim and all that. But we're not terribly far away from that. Today's AIs, including chatbots and even smaller AIs like that, are perfectly capable of sounding like humans. Right? You have an entire field called natural language processing, NLP, which is designed so that humans can interact with computers in a more effective way. Right? And this is all following under the field of HCI, which is human-computer interaction. Right. The thing is that the stuff that you're seeing on the machine tends to be very complex for very simple people to understand. Right.
Yep.
Technology is meant to be an enabler. It's not meant to hold you back in any way. Right. So people are constantly working on how to make all this tremendous processing power available to pretty much anybody. Regardless of age, sex, location. Sort of current sort of financial situation, all of these things, right? And the more and more these tools become accessible to the larger and larger people, the better our civilization as a whole becomes, right?
For sure.
And also the neural networks, they imitate the way that humans are able to, concentrate on particular subjects, particular aspects of their sensory input and blend out the rest around them. The currently, like we are talking about the popular text-to-image AI art algorithms. They are definitely milestones in the development of applications in the right hands. Again, there's a whole dark side to this. So, and people will use it for all the wrong reasons as well. But that's part of all inventions, throughout history.
Starting with the spear and starting with the sword, starting with the knife. I mean, like goodness, man, you can use it to cut vegetables or you can use it to kill people. That's, so all tools are like that, man. They can be used for any purpose you want, right?
True.
But having the tools, I would argue, is better than not having them.
Honestly. Absolutely. Let's agree with that.
So, one very interesting question that I'm coming up to is, right now, creating the metaverse itself is art. But once we have metaverse as something that's established, that's out there, we have a generation that's grown up being native to a metaverse. What will art in the metaverse look like? What's like the closest sci-fi movie that you can imagine that might explain what you're talking about?
You should check out this place, since you have a headset, Rohan, called the Museum of Other Realities. Right? It is a fantastic example of where exactly you could take this, right? Because then art stops becoming something that you view only with your eyes. It becomes a sensory experience, multi-sensory experience, right? Where you're actually not sort of, another fantastic application I have, I forget what it's called, is that you put on a VR headset, it takes you to a gallery, and you're seeing the Mona Lisa, right? You click on the Mona Lisa, and suddenly you're inside the room, standing right in front of it, right? Now, this is an example of how you could take art to that completely three-dimensional sensorial experience where you're hearing the birds like in the window behind her, for example. She's moving and she's kind of blinking at you, and it just sort of has the capacity to take this to completely new levels, right? In any case, when you're in VR, your senses, two of your five senses are already captured by the VR environment you're in. That's the whole presence. That's the whole concept of immersion, right? Your eyes and your ears belong to the to whatever,
That's
So
it.
as an artist, you have a lot more control over what emotions you are making your viewers experience through your art than you would with just, say, pen and paper or paintbrush and canvas. Um, I really, really like this part of it, that there are no limits. That if I can capture five of your senses instead of just two, then the world that I create for you will be pretty much like the world you're living in, only very different. And I get to control what that world is. It's very, very. It's these are things to actually start like really feeling, thinking deeply about at some level.
For sure. And like right now we've got DALL-E and Midjourney with the prompt stuff. Do you remember the holodeck from Star Trek?
Goodness, yes, we're heading there.
Heading there.
So would that be like the metaverse version of Midjourney? Is that what it is?
Yeah, yeah. In fact, I'll send you a link in a little while. I'll see if I could find it here. There's this short film that was made by this really talented movie maker called World Builder, right? And the thing is that it's a short film, it's set in the future, right? And what happens is that you see this guy who's going and using just gestures and stuff. He's inside the simulacrum and he's building an entire like city street, right? And I don't know if I should give you spoilers. You should see it. It kind of will make you feel like crying once you see the end of it.
Another film that I remember watching in the 90s was The 13th Floor, which had Craig
Oh yeah.
Bierko in it.
Oh yeah.
If you've ever watched The 13th Floor, that movie was way ahead of its time. And they're all in a simulation. And speaking of a simulation, well, you'll be amazed at how many people over the past decade have started considering that very seriously. It was invented by the Swedish, the term was invented by Nick Bostrom, um, who believes that there is a strong possibility we are already in a simulation. So the possibilities in the future, what you're talking about, when we are in that whatever five, all your senses are in that metaverse. Well, there's a strong possibility that reality it goes into the matrix zone. Maybe the matrix is a good reference point as well for this, because the matrix would be a great reference point, I would think. What is real, what is unreal, those boundaries are going to kind of blur in the future.
So, we've been talking so much about the metaverse, and it's a hot topic right now. I've literally seen the Google keyword metrics against this word, and it's been trending for a while, throughout the last couple of years. But Rahul, this one's particularly for you, man. What does it take to create a metaverse? What's like the bare minimum entrepreneurs should expect? What are the challenges? What are the pain points? If there are any brands that are looking to, do something in the metaverse.
Got it. See, the thing is that there are two kinds of people here: the people who build the metaverses and the people who are building things inside the metaverses, right?
Yeah.
Good metaverse should be a platform to enable creators or anybody to actually create their own visions within it, right? Till date, I haven't
User-generated content.
User-generated content. Yeah. Till date, I haven't found anything better even today than Second Life. I would really encourage you guys to go there and check it out, because it's got such an incredible creator economy. It's really simple to actually build things inside it. You can rent land from Second Life and start building your own buildings. You can create your own experiences. You can script them. So I can have a situation where I have a greeter who greets you every time you walk into my space. I have these semi-functional non-player character kind of robots which actually sort of guide me to different parts of the things that I want to see. Building a metaverse, platform-wise, is obviously a lot of design and code and all these things that really go into it. But it has to start with a vision for what you want the metaverse to be and what you want it to do, right? A lot of people are creating, say, say Decentraland, right? Metaverses don't have a specific purpose per se, but they do have a theme, right? With Decentraland, the theme is very social in the sense that you need to kind of pick up objects inside the world. You need to buy stuff. You need to kit out your avatar. You need to show off that avatar to other people. That's one way to actually look at it, right? There are other metaverses where the focus is on practicality. That if you want to, as an educator, for example, visualize how a car works to some of your automotive design students, a good metaverse should give you the tools to be able to do that as well, right? So designing a metaverse is a very intense process. I would know because I've actually designed and built a couple, from the ground up. Right. The first one was in 2012, actually, for Godrej, called Gojio. Right. So the thing is that it does take a lot of people to a dedicated team to actually spend a lot of time and effort creating the base on which the actual metaverse starts functioning. Right. Beyond that, you can open it up to other people and let them explore their own creativity. So, for example, it starts with the planning of the metaverse. That what are your actual key spaces that you need to have. It goes to the back end. That what are the server bases you need to have so that people can get inside the metaverse and have a good experience. For example, right?
For sure.
Nobody really knows that like current limitations, for example, don't allow more than maximum about 100 people to be in the same space at the same time
For
contemporaneously,
sure.
right? Now, there's this new sort of paradigm that's come in, a new platform that's come in called RB1, which lets up to about 40,000, 50,000 people get into the same server and interact with each other, right? So you could have things like you could be a spectator in a stadium watching an actual sort of live show that's being recorded holographically, and you'll be able to hear people around you, and you'll be able to see, you'll be able to feel it pretty much as if you were there directly, right? And that's what we guys as metaverse developers are heading towards. That you want to create a platform for experience and for co-creation, which will allow others to actually do what their own vision inside it. So building a
For
metaverse,
sure.
from
I
my
mean,
perspective, is just building the platform.
recently, John Carmack, the creator
Mm.
for Wolf and Doom, he
Huh.
was on Lex. I think this was just a couple of days ago,
Yeah, yeah.
and I've been watching a bunch of clippings from that particular interview. And the most interesting part I remember was how every time they would release a new game, they would completely release the source codes and all the tools for
Yep. For
the
others.
previous version. And as a result, till date, even now, you have new iterations of Doom and Quake hitting the market. People are
Yep.
modding it. They're making zombie versions. They're making Mario versions. They're making their own. I mean, they're being superbly creative. So
I agree.
this is an angle I believe he's applying to the way he
Yep.
builds his metaverses. Yeah, yeah.
So have you heard of the concept of the third place?
Oh,
Right?
not really, please. Yeah.
So people have their homes and they have their work, but they need a third place, in order to carry out all the rest of their social interactions.
For
Right?
sure.
So the third place can be a bar where you go and bar hopping with your friends or have a drink with somebody and stuff. But a third place could just as easily be a metaverse where you're actually doing things together, or you're exploring the Taj Mahal from the inside, for example, when somebody's built out that experience for you, or
For
going,
sure.
to a party which is being DJ'd live by somebody, and you're actually there with your friends, you're there with your social circle, you're actually enjoying the stuff the way you do. That line between the real world and the virtual world is going to start blurring very rapidly. Okay?
For sure. I completely agree.
And this
Ari,
Also, I
you want
just
to add anything over here?
yeah, I
Yeah,
want to add from a corporation perspective. Currently, well, our lives, if you take most people on the planet, it's either Facebook, Instagram, Google, of course, or WhatsApp. Uh, I'm missing
Zoom,
something.
Google Meet.
But generally, people, it's a corporation. Meta runs WhatsApp and Facebook and Instagram.
And Instagram, yeah.
And then you have Google, of course, and YouTube, and Google has YouTube.
Yeah,
So from a corporation perspective, there's also this fear that the power will definitely be concentrated in it's not really decentralized. It's very, very centralized.
Correct.
And Musk and everyone with the Neuralink, space, the whole reason with doing SpaceX and Neuralink and all of that, I think everything is very not so centralized.
So,
What do you guys think about?
on this user-generated content issue, do you think people are becoming smarter about, the stuff that they've created, and they're more intelligent about how platforms want to leverage their works on their platforms? Is that something, a direction we're headed to, Ari?
Well, currently the platforms, if you put something out on Facebook or Meta, they're just glad that more information is coming out. The photographs don't, unless you delete them, even if you delete them, it's there on their servers. The imagery and the videos don't get less. The information that Google is taking in or the Facebook algorithms are taking in is not less. And also it is sending, the reason why we live in such a polarized world today, and if you notice it's happened since the coronavirus, is the algorithms are now feeding everyone things that tend to agitate you a little bit. Somebody might be
amplifying anger, basically amplifying anger.
Yeah. If you just kind of notice in the past couple of years, that has definitely been amplified, kind of engaging you more and enraging you more. The right-wing guys, left-wing guys, well, I mean, whatever you like, it's the algorithm has gotten to that stage where it feeds you what you want. And well, I kind of lost the question. I'm sorry. I went on a rant about this, but yeah.
I was just saying that, is so much of user-generated content right now, is this making the creators smarter about how to handle their creations? Is that the direction we're headed towards?
If I upload something, I will get feedback. I know what's working. I know what's not working. If I do something in particular, I know which group to hit. If I want to make the right wing happy, I know exactly how to make them happy. If I want to make the woke left wing jackasses happy, I know how to make them happy. And, of course, by trial and error, you know how to do it with the whole, whatever gang it is. And it's sometimes it's hit and miss, but that's not the reason why you kind of do it. You're creating it because you want to, how it goes down. If people like it, they hate it. Well, if you're looking for, the thumbs up for everything, I don't really dwell in that. But of course, it's a hit and miss, you upload stuff and people react to it. You know what's working, you know what's not working. Yeah.
For sure. But does Facebook have more of a chokehold on the creators as they did like 5 years ago compared to now? Is that a thing?
Yeah, even Reddit, man. I went on Reddit. My whole thread went viral on Reddit last week. I did a whole post on India, the supposedly official India Reddit. I think it's run by people.
I was telling you for like the better part of last year that you need to start publishing on Reddit.
And
but Reddit also seems very biased. I mean, the moderator
really does.
There's the subreddit bias is totally there.
And but you have India Speaks. In our India, it was primarily I'd uploaded it, and after a while, the moderators, for no reason at all, just removed the post. And there were thousands of Indians who were messaging me and asking me, "What, bhai, kya ho gaya? Kyun nikal diya?" All of that. I said, "Mujhe pata nahi, unse pucho aap." So everybody.
I just unfollowed India Speaks today, man. It was just like it was a little stupid how hateful it gets now sometimes. But
Rahul, quickly, we're like running short of time a little bit. I just want to get to this major question.
Shoot.
One thing we discussed over previous calls also that, the metaverse needs a lot of people at this point in time. And major agencies, ad agencies with declining, people are not watching ads anymore. TVCs is not a thing what it used to be 10 years ago. So these agencies are still equipped with the right HR infrastructure currently. And the only barrier to entry is upskilling the people or hiring a completely new portfolio of operators. Can you expand on that? How important is that moving ahead?
See, the thing is, I'll tell you what the problems with this are first and foremost, right? As a metaverse developer of the last decade and a half, right, there's a continuous issue that these kind of technologies are not at the moment and not possibly the foreseeable future for people with low bandwidth or mid-range or low-range hardware, right? To
Yep.
get into any metaverse nowadays, right? Say, especially the more hyper-realistic ones and all that, you need a machine with a graphics card. You need something that costs at least like 75, 80,000 rupees minimum, right? And that's not available to the general public at all. So what we're talking about is this vanishingly small little minority of people who are actually being able to, who have the means to be able to get into the metaverse, right? The thing with decentralized metaverses, the blockchain-based metaverses that I'm talking about these days. Sorry, I'm in the call. Yeah. No. One second. Sorry.
That's fine.
So the problem is that try as you might. Okay, with the new blockchain-based metaverses, you also then have to understand how to get onto a crypto exchange. You also have to put in some of your own money. You have to pay gas fees and all. Not everybody can afford that, man. You know what I'm saying? The idea is to make these technologies accessible to more and more people, by sort of using good technologies or in my case, for example, just sort of holding on and saying that sooner or later, man, people are going to be able to have the technology to adopt this for mass usage, right? Still not the case at all. You can't like really get into a good metaverse with the kind of phones and machines that you have. In any case, most metaverses don't work on mobiles, and mobiles is where most people are consuming their data. So what are we talking about here? You're talking about, if you start a really cool ad campaign or something in Decentraland, for example, at the most, you'll get maybe about 100,000 people. At the most, I'm being optimistic here, right? Whereas a newspaper ad till today will still get you over 1 million to 2 million to 5 million people, right?
For sure.
Right. So it's a matter of sort of looking at it realistically and seeing that, which is the audience you want to target. Now, if it's that one specific audience who is able to get into metaverses, it should not be an issue at all, right?
Yeah,
But
because right now it's all about, community building and actually onboarding a
yeah,
particular
but
strata at a time.
exactly. But a Chandu Chaiwala will not be able to get into metaverses or even understand what the hell they are for at least the next
I mean,
decade.
not like a Ready
You know?
Player One type of a metaverse, but definitely it could be part of a textual metaverse
Yeah,
where,
yeah. See,
he's got still access to a lot of other things.
I agree, dude. But the thing is that I've always had one sort of Occam's razor. Like, I like to focus on things that are usable, right, and practical, and actually, I have a really good question that, say I design VR simulators and stuff all the time. I've been doing so for the last like 15, 16 years, right? My question every time is that is this technology something that cannot be replaced by any other technology that exists today, right? So, for instance, when you're talking about learning in virtual reality, when you're talking about simulators, which are teaching you, for example, how to actually put out a fire in an oil refinery, for example, giving you that kind of training, that skill-based training, right?
Okay.
There is no replacement because you can't set fire to an actual refinery.
Aircraft simulators.
Aircraft simulators and stuff these days. I mean, so I tend to focus more on the usable and practical parts of it. Never been really, interested in the brand building or advertising and all. I do them, but I don't find them terribly useful at the moment. I mean, it's a personal opinion, right?
For
If
sure.
given a choice, I would rather build something that is practical, which is actually helping people, making their life easier, right? Or making them learn things faster than building
I
something
mean,
which is,
there has been a considerable rush of a lot of brands registering, IPs in Decentraland and the Sandbox. But
yep.
I guess that's more of an IP registration exercise
It's
that
a
they're
B2.
executing right now.
It's also a FOMO, yeah. Like it's all these things that are there, prevalent in the crypto world at the moment. That listen, man, everyone's doing it, so we should also do it. And but I don't know. Like to me, it needs to evolve a couple more steps actually before it starts getting used and it starts becoming practical, right? Today, what would I do in a metaverse? And today the other thing is that every metaverse you join, you have to go through the same damn process all over again. You have to create your avatar, you have to link your wallet, you have to do this, you have to do that. until there is some form of interoperability between
Cohesion,
metaverses.
yeah.
Now, there are two separate terms here. There's metaverses and there's the metaverse, right? The metaverse, as it was originally envisioned, right, was the evolution of the World Wide Web into a social kind of situation where people could meet each other spatially and have presence and immersion and carry on all their activities just like they would in the real world. But today we are kind of a little far away from that, man, right? So we should wait another like 4 or 5 years and then see how the whole thing pans out. It might be possible that there might be some revolution happening in metaverses in the next year or so, but don't count on it. That's still going to be a long way.
Yeah, Rao.
Huh?
The Wayfarer that Zuckerberg was talking about, the metaverse glasses. Is that
Yeah.
right? Is it coming this year or?
See, the thing is that Horizon Worlds, Facebook's metaverse, Meta's metaverse is already around. It's
The
accessible to.
glasses, the Wayfarer ones, which you kind of.
Yeah.
I know
So
Oculus, John Carmack announced that he's coming up with something new.
yeah.
Very
There's a
recently,
lot
yeah.
of people right now. There are two kinds of experiences and two kinds of hardware we're talking about here. Right? There's the one that lets you see through it into the real world and brings digital content into that real world. Those are technically augmented reality headsets. Right?
Yeah.
There's the ones that close you off from the world and put you into another world forcibly, which is the virtual reality kind of headsets.
Yeah.
Right? There are a few things now. Facebook and Steam and Valve and all these guys are heading towards the hybrid reality that you can close your senses off to the rest of the world, or you can actually have a pass through where you're actually seeing the real world and different kind of experiences are happening there. But yes, I mean, if you're talking about purely the hardware, there's a bunch of companies today who are actually sort of going to be launching stuff with Qualcomm's new chips, for example. The
Yeah.
Oculus, the Quest 2 has Qualcomm's XR2 chip inside it. There are quite a few other headsets which have it. When they launched the XR and XR2 chips, Qualcomm, everybody from Panasonic to Toshiba to like all these other manufacturers who you kind of don't really hear about nowadays, they were all jumping in to get this whole thing.
They're all
Problem is
rushing into
that
the segment, yes.
yeah, problem is that you can build like an N amount of hardware, but buddy, who's going to be actually making the content for it? So that requires a completely different ecosystem to be created, where there's a whole bunch of people who are making experiences for all these headsets that are coming out into the market.
Just to stop, like what's currently happening with the AI art softwares, I would think. Coders is a thing, and right now they're getting all the information in one shot,
Yep.
with millions of people around the world using it.
Absolutely. So there's hardware, there's software, there's content. Like the hardware and software, we are very, very advanced right now, even today, right? But what there's a dearth of is people creating experiences and creating stuff for that, because that's still the province of very specialized teams, right? You have to know Unreal Engine, for example, or you have to understand
Exactly, yeah.
how all these things work in order to actually create stuff within it.
There's a knowledge-based barrier to entry.
Yeah, so the minute it starts getting democratized, okay, one fantastic example is Roblox, right? Roblox is definitely a genuine metaverse as far as I'm concerned, because not only does it exist, it lets you go into many different places. It lets you create your own spaces. It lets you create your own objects, and it doesn't require like any special learning to do so.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So, but
the way Minecraft, the kind of creativity you can have in Minecraft is quite phenomenal.
My 10-year-old niece on Minecraft is mind-blowing. Yeah. My 10-year-old niece. Like the thing is that this is also the tools that are going to be used by the next generation, right? There are very few people as old as Ari and me, for example, right, who are actually doing anything at all in this space, man.
No, but the other day, Rahul, what I was telling you, I had a bunch of youngsters in my house. And I was just telling them, why don't you just introduce your grandmother to this? And every day, one of them was a Christian boy, and he said, just every day, just download this for her and let her prompt, Jesus for a Monday, a Tuesday, a Wednesday, and a Thursday. And she's going to have great imagery. And you're just using, even the older generation can use it for whatever they like, not just for religious reasons, but, other reasons. My mom loves to knit. So the other day I was introducing her to this, and she was really freaking out on it, with all the woolen work and just prompting stuff and getting ideas for her to create some things, utilizing the wool and the needles.
Sure, but those are tools. Those tools have to be created by somebody in order for general people to use them. That's the point I was making, right?
Sure.
That they have to be in a format where they're easy enough for pretty much anybody to grasp,
Like the way
and to
Roblox is.
utilize, right?
Yeah.
The minute things start happening like that, then there's going to be another major revolution that's going to happen where people are actually creating stuff for the metaverse and creating, these shared experiences where everybody can kind of join.
For sure. Ari, just on the image generation thing again, I mean, you've been doing this for a while. And there's this claim that you made that it's rapidly changing. I mean, from the time that where we fixed this podcast where you said yes, that you're going to talk to me, from that till now it's been like 3 to 4 weeks. What's the progression that you see? I mean, is it actually rapidly improving at a serial pace? What do you think it's going to be like in 6 months?
Well, currently Midjourney is on version 3. Version 3 came out, I think, about maybe 10 days ago, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe a week ago. And version 3,
you can see it's doing the faces much better now.
Yeah. So we have this for feeding out even Rahul has been working on MJ. The problem that most of the softwares have right now is with the hands.
Right.
The hands, none of them can get it right, including DALL-E. The faces are getting better all the time. Of course, prompting artists and styles and all of that is just, it's pretty good. But it does have a problem with anatomy. There was a problem with alignment of the faces, which they kind of fixed in version 3. And anyone using this, if anyone's watching this and who are using Midjourney, I would recommend using -- version space 3 and also messing with the quality parameters. It's --Q, and then you can space, and then you can go up to, from 0.5 to 2. The style parameter --S and space. The style parameter is the one that kind of takes you there. The higher the input is, the digits are, it goes more into an abstract realm. But if you kind of keep it within, say, around 6,000 currently, or say 2,000 to 6,000, it kind of gets what you're hoping for. And it's a personal. Apart from
the way you use the AI, the way you use the AI, is that also like a form of art? The way your input is, what your input is.
If I'm wrong, there is an individual relationship with the prompter and Midjourney.
Yeah.
With the algorithm, it could be Midjourney or DALL-E. It kind of gets what you want. Of course, it's taken in data from all the other users as well. But if it's like Google, man, it's Google kind of knows your personality and individual personality.
Have you tried to feed the same prompts 6 months apart?
I was just saying, Ari, it would be a lovely idea if you actually input those things into Google Images and see what it came up with. The same prompts that you're using for Midjourney.
Right. Google?
Into Google search, because Google also has a fantastic AI. It's not for generator, but it might be able to find you images.
Well, I haven't really, but if I type in.
Is that what Midjourney is doing? Every time I type in a prompt, goes through Google image search and then renders an image out of,
or an image database. Because when Ari's talking about Vrindavan, it's a very specific aesthetic. It's a very specific kind of set of buildings. It has to be pulling that image data from somewhere.
And also, Rahul, if you notice, some of the imagery it generates, it still has that signature at the bottom kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's taken from, that signature of the image it's borrowed from and then created its own kind of.
Like the hypercar sketches that I sent out to you yesterday, they had a signature.
Yeah, man. Really damn nice. I prompted to
Rahul, MJ, I'm sure it's also working, pulling out images from Google. I'm 100% certain.
100%, bro. Because like last night, I was showing my mom Midjourney, right? And she's like, she's into spiritual healing, she's into Reiki, she's into all these kind of things. So she's like, hey, ask it to make me an angel, right? And I said that, that's not enough. Like, angel is very generic. So let's make an angel in the style of 𝗦𝗽𝗀𝗍 sketches, right? And my God, like every time I put a prompt into it, there's that sense of wonder that you get, like, oh my God, this is mind-blowing shit. So 100% it is pulling its images from a database somewhere or the other. And either that database was pre-created, or it's getting added to, or it's pulling from somewhere on the internet. but it's impossible for it to generate all this art without any reference at all.
It's like it's a piece of art that's familiar enough to be recognized,
Goodness.
say as a person, a car, an animal, or a building, but it's strange enough to kind of evoke our attention to it.
I know, man.
Having a sense of wonder about what this
See,
is.
so to answer Samrat's question that why am I such a technophile? Why am I worshipping technology?
Samrat's
It's
a troll.
that sense
I'm just
of
kidding.
wonder and that sense of childlike wonder that you get when your mind gets blown by something or the other. First time I put on a VR headset, I will always remember that time.
Like
The
you
first
said,
time
it's tools. You can't restrict the tools at the end of the day. You have
Yeah.
to look at
Yeah.
restricting human behavior and maybe, doing
Sam
something
would
there.
agree with me. He works on Ableton, and we all work on technology, and we've all worked. Sam is my old friend, and we've worked together. Technology is very much a part of our lives. Even
our lives. Yeah.
it's very much. Also, I want to put another word out because I get a lot of this question every day, and I'm sick of it. I get it on all my social media. Bhai prompt bata de, bhai ye bata de. I promise I'm just going to release it, with all the imagery from now onwards. And people should just explore their own prompts. So,
In fact, I think that could be secretive. I mean, your prompt is your prompt.
well, the person who asked for it, they have a term now. A Midjourney group, they have a bunch of terms. It's called a promptistitute.
Okay.
Prompt. Anyways, that's a joke,
Yeah, but see, there's another level of creativity. Like I said right at the beginning of this conversation, right? It's analogous to being good on Google search. As an IT guy, I mean, for example, it's very important that you know exactly what to search for and how to search for it to get the best results. Right. Similarly, with Midjourney and other AI prompt-based sort of generative art tools like this, it's also very important to be able to frame the vision that you have in your head as clearly as possible, explicitly stated to the AI, which will then generate the image for you. So there's a lot of creativity happening there as well.
Like I remembered, I prompted a logo into existence, but I had used the term Metaverse, so it had like a flavor of Meta's logo. I had to sort of retune my prompt accordingly to get the right.
It's a hit and miss. It's a learning process. But I think everybody, if I give the prompt to somebody, if they prompt the same thing, I'm not sure it'll be the same result that they would get.
Yeah.
And also,
we should try this as an experiment.
just to everyone out there.
I'm just going to explore my old prompts and, a month later, maybe.
By the way, there's a way to make it private, but you have to pay like $50 or something for it. But as far as my prompts are concerned, if anyone's interested, it's all public on Midjourney. You can just search for Ari Jayaprakash. You'll get my prompts. I have no problems in sharing it. So, but
yeah. We should do this exercise that each of us should actually agree on a specific prompt. Three of us.
If you go to the Midjourney groups on Facebook and all of that, people have experimented on this, and there is a difference in the results. In my opinion.
That's what's beautiful, no? That people are actually experimenting with it, trying to see what they can do with it, getting practical. And the thing is that all of this tech can be applied to your own field, whatever that field is. So if you're a doctor, you can actually put in prompts saying, visualize, somebody's kidneys for me, exactly. For example, if you're like a engineer, it's very, very flexible.
A CAT scan, you can make CAT scan designs, MRI scan designs, just get ideas.
You could prompt it and then 3D print it. I mean, that's like what the hell.
What I would love is an AI that actually takes my sketches and makes like better sketches out of them. That would be actually useful.
Rohan brings up a valid point. 3D printed objects or organic objects. Right now it's limited to 2D, but I think that's very much what Rohan mentioned is the future. The 3D print technology obviously is, improving all the time. So
this is something I'd love to
conceptualization, that time span has been drastically reduced or almost wiped out.
Agreed, and I'd love to incorporate this into any one of the metaverses that I'll be building either now or in the future. That you have a builder's tool on steroids here, where you can tell the guy, okay, build me a Venetian palace, or make me a replica of the Taj Mahal for my own land inside the metaverse, and it does that.
And then start modding it according to your.
Yeah, I was talking to my architect friend just day before yesterday, and he was telling me, Ari, this is so amazing. It saves time. And as a person, if I want to build a house, I need specs for the house. I can now imagine the house and then kind of give it to the architect and make him build the specs for it and the designs for it.
Exactly.
I don't have to rely on the time constraint. How long it's going to take with him developing the idea, the sketches, the pre-production aspects of it. So it is a time
It's a
saver.
huge time saver, man. And as a tool, it's
Definitely.
very, very useful.
And it'll be a use across automobile design, aeronautical.
One of our future podcast guests is Anoop. Anoop is the founder of the Zero Festival of Music that happens in Arunachal, in the Zero Valley. And I've essentially asked him to, get Midjourney to do a stage design, bamboo, because they make the stages out of bamboo. And I've just asked him to prompt a bamboo stage with 3
It's a good idea. Yeah.
LED screens with whatever sizes. And let's see what happens. Maybe you can actually get something out of it. Yeah.
Even instruments, man. Maybe you
So in a scenario like this, does Midjourney get royalties if they're responsible for
the current
stage design at zero?
is over 20,000. If you are making over $20,000, those are the current legal terms. Then you have to pay a royalty to Midjourney, yes. But below that, you don't. But currently, you are free to use it however you wish. You can
you can't really put a price tag on it because he makes a stage and they end up selling the festival out like they do every year. Who's going to know that, Midjourney was responsible for stage design? Who's going to know for the next animation that, Midjourney was responsible for some of the storyboarding?
Who's going to care?
Yeah, that's another thing. Who's going to care? It's AI.
As long as you get
feelings.
A good result, who cares what the means was, man? Seriously. Really, I wouldn't give a shit. See, what I would have an objection to.
Please.
Last point. What I would have an objection to is somebody plagiarizing somebody else's work, and because that's becoming a big problem nowadays.
So that's what happened with me. Actually, there were a lot of people asking me.
People have been sharing his work.
No, why are you watermarking your images? My answer is very simple. I was not doing it initially, but people started sharing those images everywhere, saying
as their own.
They didn't even mention it was AI generated art. So that's the reason I had to kind of. I think in the future everyone should maybe,
be good about
it. So that's included out there, man.
Closing words, guys. Rahul, starting with you.
Yeah, man. See, the thing is, we're living in exciting times. Specifically with the metaverse, my God, since 2006, I have been goddamn saying it is just around the corner, and it feels so nice that it is now just around the corner.
Yeah, actually feels much closer. It might still take time, but it feels much closer now than it did back then.
It's been a journey, man. And the journey is continuing, and I'm super excited about it, as I always have been. So it's beautiful to explore how these tools and this technology can really help us, in our daily lives. So that continues. That's not going to stop anytime soon.
I mean, I don't know if you shared the Hyper Reality Studio website here, but definitely, I think.
I've shared my email. I said that anybody wants to know about NFTs, I've shared my email. Send me an email. I will send you my 2-pager on how to actually create NFTs from scratch.
For sure.
But
and Ari?
Well, it's a great time to be alive. I'm 45. I'm very glad. It's such an exciting time to be alive. And I think things are changing rapidly in the next couple of years. I think a lot of changes are going to happen as we move towards the metaverse. Well, very exciting time to be an artist, to be around. So, yeah.
I mean, for me, it feels very good because, I definitely lack a lot of skills when it comes to pen and paper, like, drawing and painting and all that. But these apps have definitely been a boost for me, at least, expressing my own creativity. So I feel, this is something I'd love to share with others.
Definitely, man. Like, why wouldn't you?
Right now, it's with the art world. It'll happen with the music world next, and then it'll move into other realms. Definitely.
I heard.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot. Thanks for this Sunday session.
Been a pleasure. Thank you.
Hopefully, I'll see you guys soon. Man. Yeah.
See you soon.
Been a pleasure. See you soon.
Cheers,
Bye.
guys.